Commissioner, good afternoon.
Don't touch the camera when it's time to go on the camera.
There's not much has gone wrong lately for the SEC. That we'll get over that one. But Commissioner, thank you for the time, and I know your plans for the weekend will include Omaha. So let's start there in relation to the pride that everyone has brought this conference in baseball and so many other sports, but primarily baseball right now.
Well, we've had a good June, a great June actually. You know, we've got two new members that met for the softball national championship at Oklahoma and Texas. Two teams won the outdoor national championship, outdoor track and field, and with Florida men and Arkansas women. And I'm still impressed by that Arkansas women's final relay experience. And then you jump into baseball, and we have these high expectations. You never know what might happen. We had the equal split between us and the ACC teams in Omaha, and to watch the way Texas A&M and Tennessee have moved through their season, but also moved through the tournament and now have this championship opportunity for both is really exciting. And it's a point of pride to have it happen again. You know, the only time post-COVID we didn't have both teams in the national championship series was Oklahoma and Ole Miss in 2022. And we can kind of put a smile on that one, you know, with what's coming up here in a week and a half or so.
And I want to get to that in a second, but Commissioner, I've talked to you before, all SEC national championship games in football and other things, and I want you to share with the audience. I mean, you obviously feel great. Your league is going to win the national championship, but it does cause a little bit of angst, doesn't it?
Well, you spend the whole season in like neutral mode, and when you arrive in the postseason, you anticipate the adrenaline rush that our fans enjoy because you're pulling for a team. And so the great thing is you have the adrenaline rush all last week watching our teams compete to earn the chance to play in the national championship series. And it's like a conference weekend at a much higher level where my typical approach has been to go say hello either before or early in the game and then go find a neutral spot to watch and see what happens. It is rewarding though. You know, you and I've talked on the old 4-team format. The best moment when you had two teams in the CFP was the day of selection, and then you're nervous about going 0-2, which has happened to others, didn't happen to us, and then you make it through and you kind of go back to that neutral championship feel. And you know, we had it in women's tennis this year too with Texas A&M and Georgia and women's tennis. And I think that's just a compliment to the support provided, the young people playing, and to the ability to take advantage of the moment.
You mentioned the women's softball. We're just a week and 2 days away from seeing you in Austin and the next day in Oklahoma. And I realize we'll talk more about that next week, but just the idea that we're about to turn the corner, I know for you, that has been a long time coming.
Yeah, you remember, in fact, I think you and I talked off camera in Destin about like the most subdued possible celebratory moment in July of 21 when we announced the invitations and the acceptance of those invitations. And having had the chance to see Oklahoma's president last week and talk about the excitement, I talked to Chris Del Conte in Texas today about their plans. And then just to see the social media reaction to the logo being painted on the field in Austin and in Norman in an advanced football season is pretty cool, pretty rewarding. And it's in some ways hard to believe it's been 3 years, but really excited that the time is here and that subdued celebration can be a joyous celebration as we move forward.
Yeah, I don't know that much about Sunday night in Austin, but I don't think it will be subdued in a couple. And we just put how many hours away. I do want to talk to you a little bit about all the news that is going on in college athletics, and there's an endless stream of it, and you are at the epicenter. But as we'll turn the corner to media days and the celebration, but just in terms of what you have been dealing with and where we are on so many of these important and very pressing issues.
It's nonstop. This is one of those periods of time where you try to catch your breath and recharge, knowing all that's ahead. We're not in that moment right now. And our reality is we have to think in a different way. And it's not as if we're thinking a different way about football fields being 100 yards long or the goalpost being painted fluorescent yellow. It's not that. It is the structure around those games that's changing. You and I talked about the settlement in front of us. There's much work to be done. That is not a finish line. That is yet another chapter of work to be performed as we think about what the future might be. And I just spent 3 days at meetings of conference commissioners earlier this week. It is interesting to learn from colleagues at a different, maybe competitive or economic level about their concerns and their questions. I hope it is helpful for them to hear directly from myself, my colleagues in the autonomy grouping. We had what I thought was a really healthy conversation yesterday morning with Charlie Baker, the NCAA's president, about his view and how we move forward. And I think that's what's really important, is the focus on this new chapter and on this need to move forward and provide as broad a set of opportunities we can for college athletes in this new structure. And I think it's especially important is, tonight you can watch track and field qualifying for the Olympic Games. Throughout the week, you've seen that in swimming and diving. It's a reminder that colleges provide the foundation for the Olympic movement that we all want to enjoy great success in as a nation this summer. So all of that is part of the conversation, Paul. There's a lot there, but it's representative of a lot that is taking place and a lot of the thought that has to continue to shift.
What is next in trying to get beyond one case and into another and trying to deal with all these pressing conversations?
There is no easy answer. And I want to be very clear that that's reality. There are answers. Every answer that we seek needs work. I watch, probably like you, the D1 ticker show up every day, and I see commentary and opinions from all parts of the country, all kinds of different campuses. And that's what it is opinion and commentary. What is ahead is negotiating through counsel, through our own decision-making. Plaintiffs' counsel is a piece of this, a long-form agreement, understanding timelines that the court will establish, and some of which has been established. And I mention that not because it's particularly enjoyable to discuss on a Friday afternoon, but that is reality. There is an opportunity for us to participate in decision-making about the future of college athletics, not to sit on the sidelines and watch what's happening around us, not to simply comment and opine, but also to participate in substantive decision-making. And to that point, made a trip to Washington, D.C. last week to engage in communication with leaders about what has happened, about where congressional participation in congressional decision-making and adopting federal legislation around supporting national standards for college athletics remains a key piece of action, knowing there's a lot going on, from the election to the international issues to domestic issues. All of that's the work that's taking place right now.
On the congressional front, you mentioned the election, but that will be over at some point. Beyond that, I know you're not in the predicting business, you're in the implementation and facilitating business, but are we inching any closer to a resolution that you and many others have been trying to accomplish?
That's the great unknown. I think it's not unknowable, but it is the unknown. So we've made plenty of trips and had many conversations, even some this week, in addition to those last week, with congressional leaders. Our responsibility is to educate, and it's important to understand what one can control, what one cannot control. It was encouraging to see a piece of legislation move through the House Education Committee last week. I'll just note that's the first time that college athletics related legislation around some of our current issues has advanced. That doesn't mean it's at the finish line either. We do need bipartisan participation and bipartisan support around all of these solutions. We're very aware of that reality. The election, is going to be done at some point. I think that's a way to phrase it, given some of our recent experiences politically. And part of the need to educate right now is it's impossible to predict outcomes. And so the ability to build relationships, to have conversations, to facilitate the information flow across both aisles with both houses is an important aspect of the work.
Commissioner, before you go, I noticed that you were commenting last night about the event where you work and live, and it was watched by the entire country. I'm talking about the Rickwood Classic. Your office is in downtown Birmingham with so much history, and I just wonder what you must have been thinking about last night as the eyes of not only the nation, but many parts of the world were on Birmingham, Alabama, which is really in many ways at the epicenter of our league.
Well, I was and am grateful to Rob Manfred, the Major League Baseball commissioner, for an opportunity to be a part of that night. My wife Kathy and I both attended. I was reminded in 2017 when we honored the pioneers of our own integration from 1967, names like Perry Wallace and Nate Northington. We learned right before our dinner to honor the legacy of Perry, his teammate Godfrey, from Nate, Houston, Wilbur, and Greg at Kentucky, those six, that Perry had passed away. Obviously, Willie Mays' death just a few days, that was on my mind. This morning, I had a conversation with one of our staff whose grandfather played for the Birmingham Black Barons, who lived that life. And when you walked into the venue, it was unlike so many of our current venues because you were taken back in time. There were billboards, there were TV cameras, there were lights, but you felt you're in a different era. And watching those living members who had played in the Negro League be honored by the members of the Cardinals and the Giants walking with them to the first base and third base line, watching the respect that the current Major League Baseball players showed to those men, and some could stand for the anthem, some could not. To watch the longest living participant in the Negro League throw out the first pitch to his son, but then to see Reggie Jackson in an interview recounting what it was really like. I had that conversation. I remember Houston Hogg, who played at Kentucky, talking about how hard it really was. And I think we can miss that sometimes, about how hard it really was for those men at a time of separation and discrimination. So it was encouraging to see that rallying point, to see the willingness of Major League Baseball to come back to Rickwood Field, to respectfully honor the legacy of Willie Mays, but those who also played in the Negro League, who weren't able to break the color barrier but contributed to the game, be honored, was one of those long-lasting memories that I look forward to cherishing and looking back upon.
The Commissioner joining us. Commissioner, many, many thanks. We will see you next weekend, and we can't wait. That will be a celebration.